John chapter 4, okay? Verses 46 through 54. 46 through 54. It says, "Then he, Jesus, came again to Cana in Galilee, where he had changed the water into wine. Now there was a royal official whose son lay ill in Capernaum. When he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged him to come down and heal his son, for he was at the point of death. Then Jesus said to him, 'Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe.' The official said to him, 'Sir, come down before my little boy dies.' Jesus said to him, 'Go, your son will live.' The man believed the word that Jesus spoke to him and started on his way. And as he was going down, his slaves met him and told him that his child was alive. And so he asked them the hour when he began to recover. And they said to him, 'Yesterday, at 1 p.m, the fever left him.' The father realized that this was the hour when Jesus had said to him, 'Your son will live.' So he himself believed, along with his whole household. Now this was the second sign that Jesus did after coming from Judea to Galilee." The word of God. Thanks be to God. It's amazing what we will do for the people we love. Am I right? If you need any proof, go to my house right now. Actually, don't. But go to my house. Well, actually, not my house. It's now my new child's house. He's taken over. It's completely his now. What was once our kitchen is now a bottle distribution center. What was once our living room is now his personal entertainment center and spa. And what's amazing is even our trash is now his trash. I am amazed how much trash we actually produce now. And I'm also amazed that something so small can produce so much waste. But for those who don't have kids, you will soon learn this miracle, this ninth wonder of the world, children. All in all, we have given away our house, our sleep, our health, and our money. Did I mention sleep? I'm a little sleep deprived right now, so did I mention that? To this individual we just met only 3 months ago. It's just crazy to think about. But it's also crazy to think about how much we already love him. We can't even explain or comprehend how much we adore this little bundle of joy. The truth is that you will do anything for the people you love. And I think this is the case for the dad that we find in this wonderful story in John. The dad in this story loved his son very much. And unfortunately, his son was dying. And it doesn't matter your age, your gender, your status, your culture. We all understand how utterly helpless it feels when someone you love is in pain. Even now, some of you are probably having a hard time focusing because there's that someone in your life that is in pain, that's suffering, that person that you are worrying about, that person that keeps you up at night. We all have that person, and we all know what it's like to feel so desperate when they are in so much pain. For this dad, his world was ending, and he didn't know what to do. He had no clue what to do. And thankfully, he was a royal official, so he probably reached out to physicians and specialists trying to get the help that his son deserved. But unfortunately, the responses were always the same. "Sir, there's nothing more we can do. There's nothing more we can do." And as his son lay dying there, I'm sure his family and friends gently whispered to him to let his son go. And I'd imagine that, part of him was ready to let him go. Who knows how long he has been suffering in pain. But like I said, we will do anything for those that we love, right? And despite his neighbor's whispers, despite the doctor's reports, despite even common sense, this father was not going to stop. He was not going to stop fighting for his son. And we know this to be true because where do we find him? We find him kneeling in front of Jesus in Cana, begging for his son's life. When he heard Jesus would be in Cana, he walked 20 miles to see Jesus. Now, this is a royal official walking 20 miles to beg at the feet of a poor carpenter, someone that he's never met before, a stranger, and someone that up to this point had performed no healings whatsoever in the book of John. The only miracle that he had done previously was in Cana several weeks ago when he turned water into wine. You might remember that story at the wedding. Well, the funny thing about that is that only a few people were there to see that happen. And so this was really him being so desperate that he heard that some up-and-coming religious authority was in town, so he figured, what the heck, my son needs help. So he walks 20 miles. Let's not kid ourselves. This was a shot in the dark. This was a last-ditch effort and a very costly one at that. He was sacrificing his dignity, his social stature, and some might even argue his faith for a fool's errand, really. Can't you feel the desperation in his voice when he goes to Jesus and says, Jesus, sir, my son is on the brink of death. Will you come and help him? Unfortunately, in this story, it always surprises me when I read this story, Jesus' response. Unfortunately, Jesus doesn't seem to hear his desperation at first. Read it for yourself. Instead of responding with concern to this royal official, this desperate father, surprisingly, Jesus goes into listing his disappointments with the people around him, including the father before him. He talks about how they will only believe when they see miracles. They will only believe when he performs these signs and wonders as he talks about. This seems like an odd thing to say, doesn't it? Especially when a man is begging for his life. And I would be lying if I said I was 100% fine with Jesus' timing. It's just not something you really say to someone who is so desperate. But let's let Jesus off the hook a little bit. Jesus, since before time began, John says, was God and was with God and was the vessel for which all the world was created. Jesus, in John, is described as the way, the truth, and the life. And so, in a sense, everything that is good, loving, and beautiful, everything that is true, shows us who Jesus is, points back to Jesus. And so there is no excuse for us when we pass Jesus to not recognize him, because he is everything good that we've encountered in life, embodied, incarnate, there before us. And so Jesus is disappointed because even though he is this vessel for God's creation, he is God incarnate, people don't recognize him. People even resist him. And the only thing he knows to do, that he can do to get people to believe him, is to perform these signs and miracles. And even then, people don't believe in him. I understand what this is like. You've probably been there, where you try what you may, people still don't see the real you. People don't notice you for who you really are. And this is the case for Jesus. And this reminds us of the true darkness in humanity, the darkness within us all, the darkness that doesn't allow us to see the love of God, even when it's right in front of our faces. This is the darkness that disappoints Jesus in this story. But the good thing about this is that even though Jesus was disappointed, his disappointment soon turned into compassion. Because before him, like we said, is a father begging for his son's life. His son was dying, and I love the father's response to Jesus' statements. The father doesn't even respond appropriately. He just repeats what he had said before. He is so downtrodden, he doesn't have the intellectual capacity to engage Jesus about the darkness of human existence. All the father is thinking about is, my son is dying, I need help. And so he says, once again, "Sir, please come before my little boy dies." I wonder if you've ever asked Jesus this question. Hopefully you have not faced the horror of a child who is dying, although that is a unfortunate reality in life and even in our church. Yet perhaps you've still prayed to God something similar, like, "Please come before my daughter loses her way." Or maybe you've prayed, "Please come before my brother loses his job." Or please come before my sister gets a divorce. Or please come before my child sinks further into addiction. Please come, Lord Jesus. Please come. I think we all at some point in life pray that prayer. And the desperate father in this story joins in with us, pleading, "Sir, please come before my little boy dies." Nothing clever, nothing even faith-filled, nothing but raw pain behind his voice. And in the darkness of his pain, Jesus sees his desperation, has compassion, and says, "Go, your son will live." And so the father goes home. Now, I think we sometimes wrongly assume that turning around and going home was a breeze for this father. I think it would have been very hard for him to trust Jesus in this moment. Again, Jesus has performed no healings. Jesus was a stranger to this person. And so to turn around and just trust that Jesus was going to work everything out was a huge leap of faith. I think if I was the father, I would have asked something like, "But Jesus, are you sure? How do you know? Don't healings usually happen in person? How can you promise this 20 miles away? What proof do I have that what you say is true? Or are you just trying to get rid of me with a lie? My son and his life hangs in the balance." And can you imagine, just for a moment, imagine the emotions of walking home with nothing, with no one, just with a promise that things would work out. Walking 20 miles home. Part of me would want to sprint to see if what Jesus promised actually happened, but part of me would want to slow my pace for fear that I would once again arrive at home and see my dying child before me and have nothing, absolutely nothing to offer them. This is a painful, real story. And it's one of the most human stories I've found in Scripture. It's a human story. It's so real because it really defines what loving someone is like. The pain, the ache of trying to do what's best by the people that you love. When they laugh, we laugh. And when they cry, we cry. And when they ache and suffer, we suffer alongside them. This story especially captures that awful feeling that we've all experienced of that complete helplessness when someone special to us is in need and we can't help them. Try as best we can, we cannot help them. That desperate feeling that I know every parent feels, even in the good times, trying to do the best they can for their kids. That desperation is captured in this story. And it makes me think about the question that was asked of you, asked of me 2 weeks ago. Why do we worship? Well, maybe in addition to your reasons why, maybe we worship because we are desperate. We are desperate just like this father. And even though people might not know this, even though we hide it well, your heart is breaking for someone. Your heart is breaking for them all the time, and you have done all that you know to do, and you have nowhere else to turn. And maybe this is you coming before God and begging, just like the royal official long ago, begging for this person's life, begging for healing, desperate healing, begging for God to emotionally heal, to sometimes spiritually heal, or even physically heal that person, that one or those ones who you know desperately need it. Or maybe you're like this father who chooses to hope. This is you making a statement of hope against your desperation, that the words of Jesus aren't just fake news, but are promises waiting to be fulfilled. Whichever person you are, we all have those special people that we carry with us all the time. You did not walk in here alone, but you carry with you in your heart those people that you adore, that you would do anything for, but those people that are in pain and suffering and in need. We all have those people, every one of us, people who we love and would do anything for. And when you love someone, it is hard to have faith sometimes. It's hard to believe that God will care for that person just as much as you care for them, because they mean everything to you. And it's doubly hard to have faith because you want the world for that person, but the world only offers cruelty and pain. After all, we aren't as lucky as the father in this story. We read the story and we learned how it turns out. He goes home, his servants run up to meet him and exclaim, "Your son is alive and well." He goes home, sees his son. I imagine them hugging and smiling and laughing and cheering and singing and singing Kumbaya. And it feels like the end of an Indiana Jones movie. It's just one of those spectacular moments in Scripture. But I think a lot of us, when we read the end of this story, we ask, frankly, to God, we ask, where is my happy ending? Where is mine? To those who ask this question, I get it. And I wish I had a good answer for you. I ask the same question. I'll probably have this question on my top 10 list of questions to ask God when I meet God face to face one day. Why do my loved ones have to suffer and be in pain? This is a question that I don't have an answer for. But at the same time, when I read this passage, I am strangely reminded once again of Jesus' words earlier in the story. Those strange words that seem to come out of nowhere. He says, "Unless you see signs and wonders, you will not believe." Again, he's saddened because he has devoted an eternity to revealing his great love for us. And we don't always see it, he's saying. We don't always see what he is offering us. We don't always see him in the midst of our darkness. We don't see Jesus. We fail to see the love that he shares with us seeping through the cracks, changing our lives and changing the lives of those we love. When we get so lost in pain and desperation, sometimes it can be a challenge to move out of what I call tunnel vision. We get so lost in that tunnel that all we see is the darkness, and we rarely see the light and the life that's also in that tunnel. We rarely see that Jesus is with us, that Jesus and his miracles are closer than we think. I was thinking about the darkness that we all share, especially with the dying, and it reminded me of several years ago. I had probably a much better relationship than most with my grandmother. I loved her dearly. She was my date for the movies. She always insisted she buy the popcorn. And we would go to movies, but we would also talk about real things, talk about our faith together. It was a beautiful relationship. But I moved to California, and she lived in Missouri, so I wasn't able to see her as much. And one day I received a phone call from my parents saying that my grandmother, Grandma Mary, had passed away. And I was heartbroken, but I also remember in that moment not feeling like it was real. Have you ever felt that way, that it just didn't feel like it was actually, that it had actually happened? And I remember it not really feeling real on the plane ride to Missouri, and not even when I was getting dressed for the funeral, but I remember it hitting me the moment when I stepped into the funeral parlor and saw my grandmother. And even though I'm a grown adult, I remember just bursting in tears and just rushing out of the door in pain, in agony, suffering, lost in my darkness. And it was a moment that I will never forget. a painful moment, a dark and awful moment that I wish didn't happen in this world. But it was also a moment that I will never forget for a different reason. It was a moment when in my darkness, I remember my dad being there and taking me and sitting down with me, not really saying anything of importance, just being there with me and comforting me and saying, I'm sorry. I'll always remember that. I'll always remember my dad being there when I needed him most, and the love that was received in that moment of sheer darkness and horror. You know, I know that we don't necessarily always get our Indiana Jones endings. We don't always get our happy endings that this person in the story got. And maybe those happy endings will come in the days to come. But I do know that I, for one, have received love and healing that I cannot deny. And I know that people that I cherish have received love and healing that is undeniable. And it's been love and healing that I can't even explain at times, that comes from unexpected ways and unexpected sources. And I think if you thought for a moment about how God has expressed His love and healing into your life, it's undeniable. It's there. We can't push it aside. I'm surprised when I think about how much I've missed, how much light is really in that tunnel. I do think that these are signs that even in the darkest places, Jesus is with us, Jesus loves us, that His healing is there for us and for those that we desperately love and want to be cared for. In fact, Jesus is loving and healing us right now, so that when we do get home, when we finally get home, we'll realize that healing started since the day we believed. That healing is there. And these are our signs of Jesus and signs for better days to come. The powerful thing about Christ's love and His presence is that it's deceptively persistent. Even when we feel like all is lost, His love is there and undeniably strong. I love what Anne Lamott, the Christian author, once said. She said, "This is the most profound spiritual truth I know, that even when we're most sure that love can't conquer all, it seems to anyway. It goes down into the rat hole with us in the guise of our friends, and there it swells and comforts. It gives us second winds, third winds, 100th winds." I think what Anne and myself and maybe even Jesus are trying to tell us is that in the midst of our desperation, God's love wins the day and continues to speak to us, and that love reaches out to us at every turn, even when we don't necessarily recognize it. And even when that 20-mile or 30-mile or 20-year trek that we have to walk in pain is unbearable and the desperation palpable, His love accompanies us at every turn. And I think this is because Jesus is not much different than we are. Jesus loves us, and Jesus will do anything for those He loves. Thanks be to God. Let us pray.